And with that very intent, it is my absolute honor to be introducing one of the most inspiring persons in my life personally, Vihan Pitambar. Vihan is a no name in India. He is part of the diversity and inclusion team within the human capital management at Goldman Sachs Services in India, which is based in Bangalore. In his current role, he drives the inclusion agenda and inclusion networks as engagement for the Bangalore office. Vihan is an expert committee member of India's first National Council of Transgender Persons and was also a member of the Ernakulam District Transgender Justice Board, where he worked closely with the Social Justice Department to implement Kerala's state transgender policy. He also takes part in the LGBTQ plus advocacy efforts in India through Kerala. It's an LGBT plus organization based in Kerala. Vihan is an International Visitor Leadership Program fellow and earned a Master of Science degree in communication and an advancement diploma in globalization and human rights from Stockholm University. He has won way many recognition and awards, and that's what he's got under his name, including the latest prestigious recognition as 2020 DNI Champion of Change Award that he received from Community Business last year for being a visible and committed champion of change in advancing diversity and inclusion in the workplace and beyond in India. So it is my absolute immense joy and honor to be inviting Vihan Pitambar as keynote speaker for this session. And please give him a warm virtual welcome. Over to you, Vihan.
Thank you, GB. That's quite a long introduction and very, very kind words. So thank you for that. Hello, everyone. I just a very quick request from my end. If some of you would please come on your turn on your cameras, I would feel like I'm speaking to people directly. I know in the virtual scenario, everyone it's quite a habit to kind of turn off your cameras. But something that I learned during the whole pandemic and while we shifted to the virtual working environment is that we have to be inclusive of people, and there are a lot of people with hearing disabilities who might rely on lip reading, when they use Zoom. So I mean, just be mindful of that. That's something that I've always kept in mind and keeping my camera on. You never know who might have a hearing disability, right? So just to be mindful of that. Thank you for all those who turned your camera on. And so, I mean, thank you first of all to Out and Equal for giving me this opportunity to share, my journey, some insights that I'd like to share, and I mean, just the theme itself, right? Transgender and non-binary inclusion, I feel is very, very important, especially in the Indian legal landscape and the social landscape. We had the Transgender Act, which was launched last year actually by the government of India. Although there's very mixed feedback about the law itself, it's the first law in India explicitly for that protects and empowers the transgender community in the country. And in that space itself, as part of the law, there are certain requirements that are put forward to both government as well as private organizations to comply to. So I think it's very, very timely that this session has come for corporates to kind of learn about what are some best practices while navigating spaces and efforts in advancing transgender and non-binary inclusion in the workplace. So before while I'm going to take you through the keynote, I'm just going to give you a context about my background, my journey as a person with trans experience, and just I think in that effort, I hope some of my journey or the experiences that I've gone through will resonate to the workplace scenario that we are currently dealing with as you try to advance trans and non-binary inclusion. So just to give you a background, I was female gender assigned at birth, which means that when I was born in a hospital in Kerala, which is my native state, the doctor looked at my tiny body and recorded my sex as female, based on which my parents raised me as a girl. But from a very young age, I knew I was not who I was supposed to be on account of the body that I presented. I've spent a great deal of my life battling gender dysphoria and depression, and more importantly, navigating an Indian society where even today awareness on transgender people, our lives and our rights is very limited and even denied to a great extent. I am the youngest child at home with two older sisters. So, like in most Indian households, I got hand me downs from my sisters, whether it was clothes, toys, or books. Surprisingly, for my parents, my choices were quite different as I found myself drawn towards everything that was typically associated with being a boy's choice or masculine. So, it wasn't until I hit puberty that I started growing really uncomfortable with my body. I hated the changes that were happening to me, and I remember growing so uncomfortable that I often used to cry to my mother, asking her whether she could help stop these changes that were happening to me. For a long time, I stopped looking into the mirror because I did not like myself. I grew up quite petrified that I wasn't normal, and I just did not know who I could talk to about what I was experiencing because I myself did not comprehend it. We never learned about LGBT plus communities growing up. Even today, sex and gender is not it's a taboo subject, if I may say. You don't have sex education in schools and colleges in India. So I had never heard the term trans man or gender identity until I was 24 years old. I started my professional career pre-transition in 2008, and I have faced harassment, bullying, and discrimination because of my gender identity. This affected my mental health significantly, and I often quit jobs looking for a workplace where I could be my authentic self. I've always had managers who moral police me at any workplace. They teased me for my clothes and my hairstyle and asked me why I just couldn't behave like a woman and get married. Because obviously the goal of every woman in India is to get married, right? So I hated going to the women's restroom. Uh, so often I would just wait for when no one was using it. And this resulted in me contracting UTIs. Unable to find a space in organizations that could protect people like me, I eventually moved out of India, leaving behind friends and family to seek better opportunities for myself. But when I heard about the legal and social progress in transgender inclusion in India, and this was in 2015, especially with the launch of the transgender policy in my home state, Kerala, I returned back, hoping that the legal landscape had changed. So I gave up my job abroad and I returned to Kerala to complete my legal and medical transition. What followed was a 6-month battle with the state government, wherein I had to lobby and educate government officials about the state's transgender policy, which they were obligated to implement. While the law upheld a person's right to self identify their gender as man, woman, or transgender without any medical intervention, the Kerala Gazette mandated trans people to produce a government medical board certificate, which involved having to undergo rigorous physical examinations and invasive scans. My efforts to educate them that what they were demanding was illegal fell on deaf ears. I approached every government office, from the Social Justice Department to the Secretariat, to get this process changed, but to no avail. So I decided to go through this humiliating process, and I had to undergo multiple ultrasound scans and strip at 3 different hospitals in order to get a medical certificate to prove my gender for an identity card. So why I'm highlighting this is when each one of you have to go and apply for an identity card, what you do is fill an application form. What I had to do was trip in front of people at 3 different hospitals for an identity card. But I did not keep quiet after this. I spoke about my experiences at various forums. I wrote about it. I had the media cover it. I filed multiple complaints, after which my state government changed the process and trans people were no longer asked for medical certificates. It was in this journey that I experienced and understood the problems that arise in institutions not engaging with representatives from minority groups when creating and implementing policies and programs that are meant to empower them. When I changed all my identification documents, I was happy, thinking that I could start my life fresh in India, but struggled to find a job in corporates, many of whom did not have LGBT friendly policies. So I joined an Indian corporate in 2018 through a friend's referral and kept my gender identity a secret. However, very soon everyone found that I was a transgender person as there were media reports about my life and hence started talking about me quite frequently. For senior leaders in the firm, I was their lunchtime gossip as they would joke about how I studied in a girls' college. My colleagues would misgender me intentionally and then say it was all in good fun. Once they were planning to bring in a work from home system where women could work 2 days from home in a week while men could work one. To my shock, I realized that my name was excluded from the work from home system for no apparent reason, while every other member could work from home. So such incidents started causing distress and anxiety when I had to go to work. I felt my performance being affected, and I no longer wanted to work at a company that did not see what value I brought to the team as a professional, but was more focused on my gender identity and made assumptions on me based on that. It did not matter to them how good I was at my job or what ideas I brought to the meeting room. I was always going to be behind a trans person. My character, my talent, my educational qualifications, and my achievements did not have any relevance. This is my story before I joined Goldman Sachs in 2019. I cannot tell you what a difference it makes to have inclusive leaders creating safe spaces for people like me to thrive and succeed. In 11 years of my work experience, this is the first time when I'm working with Goldman Sachs that I'm not worried about anything else apart from deadlines and work deliverables. Last year, I won the DNI Champion of Change Award 1 year after I joined Goldman Sachs. My managers are my strength and my biggest cheerleaders. Thank you for listening to me, and I'd like to open the forum to some reflections.
Thank you so much, Vihan, for that incredible testimony. I'm sure when you were sharing this entire experience of yours to get the basic identity card registered under your name and the whole process. And that's when, at many levels, we take our own privilege for granted when we know that there's so many struggles that people from the trans community and non-binary community they go through. So thank you for being the voice for millions in India, for that matter. It takes a lot of courage to come on a platform like this and share your story. I'm just going to see if there are questions. I do see that there is a question from Amit. Can you share an instance or a situation that had deep impact on your mental health, and how did you overcome that?
Oh, there were plenty, I would say. So just, I think just in many instances of discrimination, right? I would say for me, something that had a very deep impact was, I had the Indian corporate that I had worked with, although they have three strands under their DNI, which is gender, disability, and LGBT. And I saw that no work was being done under LGBT because obviously no one knew what to do with it. So I went to the CEO myself and said, you know what, I showed him my external profile, advocacy profile, and I said, you know what, I see this is listed under your DNI strands, but no one's done anything in this. So this is my external advocacy profile. Can I start a conversation on this? And so he's like, yeah, why not? Please, he looked at my profile and said, please do. And at that point, I was part of their corporate communications team. So I started doing a dual role, which was DNI and corporate communications. Right? So I started working on, LGB. I launched their first Pride campaign, and I was working with, obviously I was reporting to a DNI head there. Um, and it was very disheartening for me because you look up to your DNI heads to kind of as your first point, to kind of lead the way for you, right? And anything that I would say in the LGBT front on putting my ideas through, the response I would get was, I'm an LGBT ally, but so every response had a but with it. So I'm like, if are you an LGBT ally or not? If you're an ally, why does every sentence have to be, have to continue with a but? So and it became very disheartening for me because like I mentioned earlier, the instances that I faced in the workplace, everyone just started judging me. Uh, no one took LGBT inclusion seriously there. Everyone was like, you just, you have to act. You started, telling this to my face. You have to start behaving smart. You can't just work based on passion. and out of your heart. You have to be very smart about this, and you will not make you won't reach anywhere in the workplace if you're just behind LGBT inclusion. So I and this came from senior leaders, and they used to share a lot of derogatory remarks as well, right? Ask very intrusive questions as well. And for me, it was like, this is LGBT inclusion is one strand that this company has committed to. And why is it that I'm the only person in this company who's bothered about this? And so why does the company even list LGBT inclusion under their strands if they're not ready to take it up or even have conversations about it, and only dissuade people who are ready to even have conversations about it? So this, I think, every day when I used to come to work, it was small instances like this that used to affect me very gravely, and it built over time, and that's why I decided to kind of leave that organization, because it became very toxic, right? Because people used to, like I mentioned, misgender me. I looked exactly like this when I was in that company. They used to still misgender me intentionally and then say it was all in good fun. We're just joking, and I had no one to stand up for me or point out that apart from myself, telling them that what they were doing was not right.
Thank you, Vihan. We have a couple of more questions coming in. The next one is, what do you hope to see in terms of trans and non-binary inclusion in the Indian workplaces over the next 5 to 10 years?
I would definitely say something that I prioritize every single day, and I keep telling people, is to work on building your culture in the firm, right? So there is a lot of conversations happening on hiring. People want to hire trans people. People want to give jobs, which is all good. It's all good intentions. But what makes you think you already don't have trans people in your organization? Right? I had 11 years of experience. I was working with different corporates at different parts of my life. I was never out with those organizations because they never had inclusive workspaces. I didn't feel safe to come out. And the moment that I decided to do my medical transition, I had to quit my job and then that brought a 2 year gap in my work, my career. And then I had to change my identification documents and join another firm, right? This is the case for 90% of the trans community in India, because they always leave their jobs because they don't feel safe coming out to their manager or at their workplace, right? And then they complete their medical transition and then either join another firm. So just imagine, if you've built your workplace culture so and it's a safe space, it will definitely stop your trans employees from quitting the job and leaving when they want to do that transition, and they can transition while sitting on the job, right? So as much as looking, I would say hiring should be definitely secondary, but primary is definitely building on your workplace culture, making sure it's a safe space, right? And I'm just to quote a stat, it's a stat in India that 5 to 8% of any given population is LGBT. So if you look in your own organizations, you already have the population. But how many people do you know from the LGBT community? See, obviously, it's not the onus for them to come out, but the onus is on you to create a safe space so that they feel comfortable sharing their story or coming out, right? Hear a lot of organizations coming out every day saying they offer same-sex partner benefits, they offer gender affirmation coverage. How many of your employees are availing these benefits? I'm sure it's not two-digit numbers for sure. And one of the reasons is because they are not comfortable coming out and asking for these benefits, because that means they're outing themselves as well, right? They are declaring that they are from the community and they don't feel safe enough to do that. So I would definitely say build a culture that people feel comfortable, even during the interview process, just letting you know who they are. And I cannot tell you how it was a liberating experience for me when I started the interview process with Goldman Sachs. And I have never felt more empowered to be myself. My managers from day one made it a point to let me know that in no way should I feel compelled to share my story as a person of trans experience until I was ready and wanted to. Right. So from day, I mean, and that was in 11 years of my work experience, that was the first time in my life I felt comfortable just talking about, the gap that was there in my career journey. Because before any other employer, when they ask, so why is there this 2 year gap in your career journey? And I used to tell them, I should make up some story, right? Because if I actually tell them why it took that 2 year gap, that means they're coming to know my gender identity. So this was the first time I was able to have that conversation. So building that culture is extremely, extremely important. I would say equipping your managers, right? Just ask yourself, is every manager in your organization equipped to have a conversation with a trans or non-binary employee? If today someone goes to their manager and says, I want to know what are the benefits, I want to know what are the gender affirmation benefits that the firm provides, and how I want to start my transition journey, is your manager equipped to handle that conversation with that employee? Just ask yourself that. If you have 100% of, on that, on those managers who are equipped to have that conversation, then you have an inclusive culture. If you don't, then that's where you need to start working.
And thanks for emphasizing on that point of culture building, Vihan. And that leads me into my next question about the culture of allyship, right? On a corporate level, how can allies help? And what are your top three recommendations or things that we should work at educating to give a same space for any person joining in the future or even the current workforce?
So three things, right? So this is my mantra, like reflect, educate, and advocate, right? Reflect starts from you. We all have unconscious biases, and this includes people from the LGBT community itself, right? All of us are, all of us have our unconscious biases, and it comes from conditioning. Make understanding and unlearning your biases a priority towards your personal development, right? And this is not just restricted to the LGBT community, but any minority, right? Even if you look at persons, the disability community or any other community, we all have unconscious biases. So always look at understanding and unlearning your biases. Educate yourself and others on LGBT inclusion or LGBT lives, right? Do not wait for someone else to enlighten you. So a lot of times when I go and speak at platforms, a lot of people come and say, oh, I didn't know, we didn't learn about this in school and college. It is true. We still don't have our curriculum, which is but that doesn't stop you from putting that effort from reading upon resources. There are so many resources available online, provided by platforms like Outcome Equal, Stonewall, HRC, any like Pride Circle, Community Business. You've all made across such wonderful resources that talk about LGBT inclusion in India and in other countries. Read up upon. I mean, we all have access to the internet. We all sit on our phones and check social media and spend 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes every alternate day reading about one article about transgender inclusion or non-binary lives, and imagine how much you're educating yourself. And don't stop at that. Share that information, something that you read. I read this article today. Who have you shared that information with? Have you shared it with your colleagues, your friends? And don't restrict this to the workplace. Have conversations at home. It's never too early to have conversations with your children, right? I have my 4 year old nephew who came and asked me, can a boy marry a boy? And I said, yeah, why not? Love, and it's as simple as that. Children ask the most simple questions, and I would say just it's never too early to start those conversations at home. I said, yeah, why can't a boy marry? And it's love. You can feel love towards anyone. Anyone can marry anyone. And his response was, okay, and he just ran away. So you get it. I mean, it's just the most basic question. So start having those conversations at home itself. It's not, I would say the organization is a microcosm of society, right? So don't restrict your inclusive actions just to the workplace, but take it externally as well. And I would say, thirdly, advocate. When you witness inappropriate behavior or comments in the workplace or even externally, speak up. Don't be silent. And something that I personally believe, if you tolerate it, is equivalent to cooperating with it, right? So seek out the right channels and let it be known that you find this unacceptable. So always, and you don't need to confront or get into a ugly fight. But even at the workplace, seek out the channels where you can, tell that this has happened and this was inappropriate, right? Or if you're uncomfortable, talking to the person directly, talk to your HR or the person's manager anyway, but make sure that this kind of transphobic or homophobic comments or jokes or banter is not encouraged in the workplace. So I think these are just basic steps that each and every person can do. It's not restricted to the leadership. Anyone in the organization should be able to do this. Reflect, educate, and advocate.
Thank you for those wonderful, very, very easy tips, Vihan, and I hope we can go back home and start working on that. Now, getting into a little bit on the national level, right? At a political level, especially when it comes around the transgender laws in India. From your experience as a committee member of India's first National Council of Transgender Persons, can you please share what did you find strikingly different when it comes to the transgender laws? What exactly is this law about? What does it exactly say? And any message to the corporate India that they have to be aware about this particular law?
So something that I'd like to highlight from the law, and which I mentioned earlier, was that the Transgender Act specifies an equal opportunity policy, which every organization should have. And this is not specific to just government organizations, but private organizations. It specifies that the equal opportunity policy must specify, its protection of transgender employees, opportunities available for transgender people in India, right? So transgender, the community in India, what are the roles available in your firm that the community can apply to, right? No discrimination policy, gender neutral washrooms. These are all provisions under the Equal Opportunity Policy. And there's a section very specific to it on the Transgender Act that you can read to. It's available online as well. That kind of mandates every organization to comply to the Act. So, although the Act launched last year, it's going to be, I mean, the government is working on implementing it. So, I think there is a 2-year term or something within which, all organizations have to start complying with it. So then I think once the whole mechanism of it comes into effect, there will be obviously they would be checking if all organizations are compliant with the Act itself. So definitely making opportunities for transgender employees, making sure these are listed on your website itself. It's very similar to the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act in India, which was launched in 2016. Which again, there is a section very specific to the private organizations and the corporates to comply with. Very similar to that.
Great. I just want to quickly reflect on what you said in your keynote around your experience with the previous organization versus where you work currently at Goldman Sachs, right? So one of the questions is, can you please share what did you find strikingly different in Goldman Sachs compared to the other organizations you work with? And there's a follow-up question is, could you list at least one thing which is done in Goldman Sachs as an inclusive practice that you feel it should be applied everywhere?
So I would say it's multiple things, right? So in Goldman Sachs, I think talking about LGBT inclusion is like a daily thing, right? And it's not just that I always see my managers, my colleagues, and all, talking openly about LGBT inclusion, whether I'm there in the room or not. And I think that's important, right? So it should not be that you're doing it just because you're mindful of it, just because you know there's someone LGBT in the room, but they talk about it anyway, right? They from having and being very, I would say, visible allies, right? From having Pride ally flags on your desks to Pride Zoom backgrounds to putting email signature with your pronouns and explaining why it's important, right, to someone else who doesn't do it. I think everyone is very consistent in having those conversations in the workplace, right? And I would say those visible actions that you do goes a long way in showing your allyship to the LGBT community, and makes people feel more comfortable at the workplace, right? You feel safe thinking that, okay, my manager is talking so much about LGBT inclusion and was being such a visible ally, that would kind of nudge you, towards, reaching out to the person when you're ready to, might be asked, might be even for a resource or even to come out for that matter, right? The firm launched, a transgender inclusion toolkit in November 2019, which is a great resource that we've come out with for our managers to understand on how to create a transgender inclusive environment and to help them understand a manager's roles and responsibilities in helping a trans employee during their transition at the firm, right? So this is something that we came out with in 2019, and we've made available to all our managers. Our sensitization is, I would say, it's multi approach, right? So we continue with a leaders, senior leadership. We have a lot of MD allies who, and who consistently have conversations with their division. So it's not that I think with a lot of corporates, you have senior leaders who want to be part of LGBT inclusion, but you have to write the whole narrative for them so that they can speak. You have to prep them with talking points. I think we shouldn't be doing that. If you have MD allies who are committed to LGBT inclusion, they have to do a little bit of homework on their side when they want to talk about LGBT inclusion. So we have this initiative called Straight Talk, that we have MD allies who engage with their divisions in conversations about LGBT inclusion. So they talk about various workplace scenarios, and it's an open discussion between the MD, the managing director and the division, basically, which is led by the MDLI. So we make sure that our senior leaders themselves are equipped to have these conversations with their divisions. We also have another ally program where we invite employees from different levels, basically who want to be active allies, and volunteer for different initiatives. So we work with them towards, equipping them to have, to take part in different initiatives as well. So multiple way, I think sensitization is definitely one. Second, something that we also work on is reverse mentoring. This is something that's been happening in Goldman Sachs for quite a long time. So we pair our senior leaders with members from the LGBT community, and who act as mentors for the managing directors. So it's a great opportunity for our managing directors to learn about the lives of LGBT people, and and workplace scenarios, and where their interventions can definitely make a huge difference. And obviously, we have a very good LGBT network, which is our employee resource group, and they definitely work, consistently across the year, work on different programs. Starting with Pride Month, different experiential workshops. Partnering with vendors like Aravani Art Project, Community Business, Periphery. So we come up with different programs and workshops throughout the year to make sure employees have an opportunity to take part, hear from different external speakers, as well as take part in internal discussions as well.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing all those wonderful best practices at Goldman Sachs, Vihan, and to everybody. Unfortunately, that's the time that we have with Vihan with the Q&A sessions, but I promise the balance of those questions would be passed on to Vihan for his response, and we would get back to you with the responses. Moreover, we have the breakout session rooms, which is up there, where these discussions can be continued. On behalf of everybody, Vihan, thank you so much for sharing your story, your insights, your knowledge, your life experiences, everything together. We all love you. We are so proud of your life, and we just want to listen to more and more stories from you. And I'm sure everybody agrees to that as well.